Hi, this is Dr. Steven with Outclick Magazine. Today we're excited to bring Zuill Bailey to the program. He's an American cellist. His rare combination of celebrated artistry, technical wizardry, and engaging personality has secured his place as one of the most sought after and active cellists today. Mr. Bailey will be guest performing with the South Florida Symphony Orchestra on Saturday, January 16th, 2021 at 8 p.m. as the featured cellist of their Masterworks 3 virtual concert. Get your tickets now at www.southfloridasymphony.org. Go to the 2021 season link and click on the red Buy Now button for Masterworks 3. Be sure to use promo code OUTCLICK3, OUTCLIQUE, and the number 3 to save $20. That brings your household pass for the virtual concert down to an amazing $25. Today, we want to welcome Zuill Bailey to the program. Zuill, welcome.
Hey, Stephen, great to be here.
Great to be here. Great to talk to you. You're an absolutely amazing cellist. I've seen you perform. To get out there, I'm an organist, which means I play completely with music, and you get out there and play, obviously, from memory, which to me is absolutely amazing to play. You have a long history with the symphony. Tell us about what happened back in '98 with you and the symphony, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Well, I have a very long history with the maestra, Sabrina Alfonso. She and I go way back, the 1900s. We met in Baltimore, Maryland, when I was traveling up from Virginia from high school to study with Stephen Cates at the Peabody Conservatory of Music at Peabody. So she was around and she was doing wonderful things in that area, and a celebrated conductor even in those years. And got to know her very well, as did we all became very, very good friends, and subsequently worked with her with a couple of orchestras as her guest soloist when I was a teenager in Maryland. And so your question, in 1997, she had this brilliant idea to return to her roots, which was Key West, and to bring the world to Key West. So she They wanted to create an orchestra that would be titled the Key West Symphony, and they wanted to, just celebrate this marvelous place on earth with the best music possible. So I went down in 1997 at her wishes to play a fundraiser. It was in the spring of 1997, and I'll never forget it. It was a massive rally of the arts in Key West. And there was so much trust in her and her abilities that the Key West Symphony was born that very, very day. And what you are alluding to after that was 1998, the first official season. Lucky enough to be invited to be a part of that celebratory season, 1998, with the Shostakovich Cello Concerto No. 1. And this is why it's so special to return to this piece. This upcoming concert with her.
We have seen the symphony go from the Key West Symphony to the South Florida Symphony Orchestra, and seen them grow from just Key West. They perform now in Palm Beach. They perform here in Fort Lauderdale at the Broward Center for the Performing Arts. They have venues in Miami and Key West. So they are quite expansive in where now they perform. If you've seen them grow, if you want to comment on some of their growth and what you've seen since 1998, which is really not that long that they've grown so much.
Well, I mean, it's amazing what they have done as well as what they're doing. And they're the perfect example of how the arts can thrive and expand with the times. Obviously, they outgrew just being in Key West, being able to pick the greatest musicians in the country to come there to play with them in the orchestra as well as guests is a very unique situation as it is. But they obviously ballooned and blossomed out to work in Miami and Broward and Fort Lauderdale, as well as Key West. And it's for me to return to work with them and to see the footprint they have, not only for performing arts, being the concerts themselves, but the opportunity for musicians to have work and to have so many possibilities for work, as well, and most important, I think, for all of our futures, is the educational component that they bring to the table that with their educational concerts as well as student discounts, and also just time spent in the community. When I go there to perform with them, I'm not there like for just a few days, like most orchestras. They're usually there for a week or more, and there's very little downtime. We're hitting the community hard with educational concerts, outreach, master classes, in addition to the concerts themselves.
That's one of the, I almost call it a hidden gem, is that all of the educational components that the symphony puts forth in K through 12, some higher ed initiatives, and all the educational components. So as you said, it's not just the concerts, but it's just been phenomenal to see them grow. We love to interview Sabrina. She's a master when she gets up at the podium and the way she conducts the symphony. But when she speaks, she is really just such a nice person to deal with. She's just phenomenal to sit down and have coffee with and talk with. And at the same time, she is so passionate about the music that she just, after all, we have to wrap up the interview because she is so passionate about what she does. She truly cares about the music and the symphony. You can tell it is just something that's just so much a part of her. But like I said, the flip part is she's really such a nice person. She's just a joy to work with. And that is what has really brought a big part of the growth of the symphony is her leadership. And of course, Jacqueline as the CEO is just, has really worked so hard, especially during these COVID times, to keep the symphony alive. And as we've said, to keep the music playing.
There's a saying that no matter what you do, it's not necessarily what you do, it's how you make people feel. Not only is the product incredible with what they're doing, but you are correct. Sabrina brings a warmth and a family aspect to the table. And I've always felt that with her. And I'm truly grateful to have been friends with her for so long. I mean, it's almost 30 years now. It's amazing how time flies, and we still hold on to the ones that brought us there.
Do you have any funny stories you're allowed to share on camera about Sabrina? Because we've got to keep this PG, but I don't know any of them. They said you might have any funny stories about Sabrina, and if you don't, it's okay. But if you have any funny stories.
My stories are it's just the adventure. They're not funny as in embarrassing, but they are such. She is such. The orchestra is such a. They always make a sound investment for the future. I've played so many unique works with her. She's allowed me to be a part of the creative process. Everything from Kabalevsky to Elgar to Dvorak to Prokofiev to the Hemingway Tales of Hemingway by Michael Dougherty to the fact that we world premiered the Ellen Zuill Cello Concerto last year.
Yes.
There's always it's the unknown, and that going back to how you make people feel. I feel like every time we get together, it's we're holding hands for dear life because we're always on an adventure of a lifetime and doing something that's extraordinary and a risk, and that risk to bring new music to the table or to challenge the audiences to different kinds of sounds, to do it with friends. Again, I remember every instance working with this orchestra because each of them has been its own adventure.
Tell us a little more about the Cello Concerto No. 1 that you're going to be playing. The composer is Russian and Soviet, and so the sounds are very different than, say, the Haydn or Mendelssohn or Beethoven. It's very different tonalities, very different melodies. Tell us a little about how the piece sounds different than some of the other orchestral pieces that maybe you've done.
Well, I mean, I think when you speak about Russian music, you have to. It's glaringly clear. And where can I start with this to make it as brief as possible? During these times, COVID, I have found that music has been very therapeutic. It's an outlet that gets out pent up emotion, whether it be sadness, loneliness, isolation, adulation, passion. It really is a soundtrack to, as a listener, to one's life. As composers are, when you know more about how and why these pieces were written, it becomes even more interesting, especially also in the art world. I took a class one time at Peabody called Music and Art, and we would study a piece of art, and then we would study music that was written around the same time with the same kind of world influences, sometimes political, sometimes passionate, sometimes war. So when you hear Russian music, a lot of it, there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of patriotism. There's a lot of aggression and possibly anger. There's great sadness. The extreme of emotions in Russian music is quite different than I think most composers like a Haydn or a Mozart. I think Mozart is always, whenever I think of Mozart, I kind of find myself looking towards the heaven and seeing God or something greater than. When I think of Russian music, I kind of crease my brow and become very heavy, but yet. Listen, I asked a wonderful Russian pianist one time how to interpret Russian music because I just didn't get it. It didn't sound right to me when I played it. And this wonderful artist said, being Russian, "Oh, it's very clear. To succeed in interpreting Russian music, one must play with all their heart and soul at all times, because you have to remember there is no hope." No hope. I mean, when you play music, isn't it supposed to bring you hope? I mean, but when you're playing with no hope, like this could be your last note, this could be your last moment. It's a far different experience. Heart on the sleeve. And so to answer your question, Shostakovich, this guy was at the top in his 20s, and he was celebrated by Joseph Stalin. He was the most celebrated composer, and everything he did was gold until it wasn't. In his 20s, all of a sudden, his music was slightly misinterpreted, and not slightly misinterpreted, scarily misinterpreted, politically, like he was mocking Stalin and Russia, and he fell from grace and became very fearful and very, very uncomfortable. And that began showing in his music a lot. And this piece that you're going to hear today, which was written in 1959, is very reminiscent of what, obviously, Stalin died in 53, but it shows kind of what that umbrella of having to live under Stalin did to pummel Shostakovich. The first movement is a 6-minute march, and it sounds. In fact, that I was reading a little about it. This motive that he uses was used in a film that Shostakovich scored about the Soviets marching to their death in Nazi wartime. So very, very stiff, militaristic, just march, but it's unlike anything I've ever played. It's so twisted in the hand, and it's so repetitious, and it's so vertical, like just cookie cutter, boom, boom, knees up, marching to your death. The second movement, the Moderato movement, was, in my opinion, and I'm not alone in this, it's about a 10-minute mournful, almost funereal, thoughtful moment for Shostakovich to think back at all the people that had been lost and taken away by Stalin's oversight, looking at everybody and erasing them from the history books, all of the artists and the composers and the writers. And it's incredibly, incredibly mournful and sad, elegiac. But it starts to get angry in the middle of this sadness. And then it lifts off at the very end of this 10-minute movement, and it shows the ghosts. As you'll hear, there's a celeste. Now, a celeste is a piano that, instead of striking strings, it strikes bells, like a marimba, a xylophone. So it sounds like it's a different kind of sound. And then the cello uses false harmonics, which sound to me like spirits and ghosts, like Shostakovich and his daily walks through the cemetery. The next movement is very unique. It's a cadenza, which no other composer had ever done, written an entire movement for solo instrument.
Okay.
And to me, this shows the solitude and the dissolution, the despair, the isolation, the fact that most Russians had a country home that they would go to. But Rostropovich, who he was written for, as well as Shostakovich, Shostakovich had a bag packed by the back door because he was so afraid that they were going to come find him and misinterpret one of his pieces and take him away. So he would, whenever he would sit in this house to compose in isolation, very likely down and depressed, this is the moment where the solo cello voice is the third movement, and it starts to get riled up over about 5 minutes in the final movement. And he's so smart. Shostakovich's most of his final movements, he weaves in some kind of tribute or some kind of favorite piece or something to Joseph Stalin, just to make sure that whatever has happened in the first three movements or whatever of his symphonies, as well as his concertos, that it's still paying homage to where he's from and the leader, Joseph Stalin. So it is considered one of the most difficult works for cello. It was written for Mstislav Rostropovich, who had a very different setup mechanically than other cellists. You know, look at my hand right here. You can see my little finger ends right there at this knuckle. And Rostropovich, that finger here was the same length as this finger. So he played the cello like a piano. And all of the things and all of the virtuoso passages are perfectly suited for Rostropovich's hand.
Because of his fingers.
Because the finger was so long here. It's right up here. And it was most of the pieces written for Rostropovich were basically geared to only be played by Rostropovich. Now, the cello evolution has occurred over the past 50 years, thank goodness. And we've learned because of this new techniques. But again, a remarkable work, accepted immediately into the mainstream of the cello repertoire with cello and orchestra. Perfect way to kick off the at the time the Key West Symphony season. Now South Florida's the past season, or this season we're in, and a piece that's actually very rarely played. It's very, very difficult, but so unique that I can't wait for the audience to hear it.
It's so different from Handel's Messiah, or they actually just did Vivaldi's The Four Seasons, which is a celebratory piece of the Four Seasons, or Messiah that's of Christ's birth. Or this one, I was listening to it again, and it's such a unique piece, and hearing the background of it, even more so of what the composer was going through. And really, thank you, that really sets the tone to help to understand why the tonalities, why the melodies are so different and so unique, and the emotion that's behind it. And I, although I'm not a cellist, I can tell it's a very difficult piece to play, and I can see it's would be much more difficult.
Well, Sabrina called me and asked me. She said, "This is the piece I want to do. Would you please return?" And that's brilliant programming, also, because all the things that I described to you, we're not going to go into any part of it. I'm just going to be a large statement here. The kind of what we've been going through as a society. Let's just put it that way. This piece in my life was very needed right now. I got out a lot of kind of aggression. I got out a lot of sadness from all the loss of life this year. I thought about a lot of people that have left us during the slow movement, the solitude of the third movement, that we all have kind of been in this isolation, and the kind of it makes us so angry that our life hasn't returned to normal yet. And then the last movement is maybe the hopeful movement that the vaccine is coming, and that we're going to prevail. And one has to kind of look forward, even though channeling Russian music, maybe there's no hope. I don't know. It was really therapeutic for me to play this piece and prepare it for this concert coming up.
One of the questions I've asked almost all of the artists that we've had on this show is, how have you dealt with COVID and having everything shut down? For me, it was just very difficult not being able to go to the live shows and Broadway and the symphony, and not being able to go to church and not being able to hear the music was just deafening. It was absolutely deafening not to go and hear when everything, and as you very well know, in 1 week, everything closed, and it was very difficult. I found YouTube music and started listening and compensated by that. What was it like for you as a musician not to be able to perform and to have that interaction with the audience and with the other musicians on stage? Because my heart broke for all of the performers that just, that void just came so quickly.
I've been very withheld about my opinions about this. And I'll talk to you about it, but
and don't, if it's okay if you want to pass, I totally understand.
No. Listen, everybody's journey is very different, and this time period has brought out a lot of mixed emotions. Let me start by saying I was very lucky to start my traveling career from 19 years old. It had built up for the last 25 years of being on the road over 300 days a year. For the last few years, I've been running myself so much to the bone that I couldn't even describe to you when people ask me, so where's home? It's a strange feeling when you can't really tell people that. The first thing that comes to mind is a hotel room or crunched over on an airplane. I was not going to say I had burnout, but I was getting very close to some place that I wasn't really wanting to be. This break was very welcomed for me because I got to answer, and this is all in hindsight. The first month or so was a state of shock because I'd never really been home very much. It was a state of shock to have a routine. It was a state of shock to not have to practice and get stuff ready for the next 2 days, to be on this treadmill. In my home, there was no music. I didn't want to practice. I didn't want to play. I didn't want to be seen. I just wanted to sit in silence. With the silence, I realized how much noise was in my life. And noise doesn't mean noise. I'm just talking about things that didn't bring me to the center. Daily walks, close friendships, and real conversations that I rekindled, and also just focused on my boys. I have 2 children that they've always thought that I worked at the airport, because I was always at the airport. I got to spend all day with them for months. So long story short, yes, it was a very unusual time for a few months, and starting in the summer, I started to kind of wake up and see colors again and start to listen to things and to do things that I felt were much higher quality. And then I read this beautiful, beautiful article that said that we have to see this pandemic as a portal to a next chapter. And the success of the next chapter depends a lot on us not bringing past baggage forward. To come through as clean as possible with fresh ideas and new insights and reinventing something that will never be the same again, even if it's just from the experience of it. So I slowly started to kind of rebuild my approach to the cello, and why I came to the cello at age 4, just based on the sounds. I started working on my vibrato. I started just playing slow pieces that brought such, again, centering to my life and made me happy. And it started changing my playing. Now, the devastation that this has done to the industry, that's a whole nother thing. Because, I mean, obviously a lot of people, the majority of musicians are in these ensembles that can't play in public anymore. They can't play for large audiences for a while, or this or that. And because of the overhead of these orchestras, they had to stop being paid, like, altogether. This is devastating. And I've been trying my best in all the ways that I can to help, raise money on their behalf and do things to assist. We still have to stick together through, or for the future, for the foreseeable future, a to support culture and the arts, because I think now more than ever, people realize the importance of it. And the deafening silence made us also realize that we could lose it if we're not careful. And our reminder of our humanity are the arts, is music, is dance, is opera, is our museums. And so I for the first time, we're talking 9-10 months later, I feel very different than I did had I tried to answer this question even 4 months ago. But I have personally, to sum it up, I've welcomed this process in hindsight. But it was definitely like the stages of grief, 100% in hindsight. I didn't realize how kind of dark it got at one point, and how until I saw light again. I was like, oh my God, I haven't felt that in a while. But it just it rebooted me personally.
I think I go back to the stages of griefs. We went through anger and depression and denial and bargaining, the dabda. If you're familiar with those, we went through all of that. Why is this going through? A little bit of denial, like is this a scheme from the TV stations or the government, or people were angry. They were very angry at things. And then, as you said, we finally made it through to the acceptance stage. This is life, and what can we learn from this? And one of the things I've said over and over again that one of my mentors said years ago was, don't waste your suffering. You're going to suffer at all points in life, whether it's large or grand, and don't waste it. And I think in hindsight, as you said, we've finally taken a step back and said, what can we learn from this? How can we both individually and collectively as a society learn from this? Even though it's been very devastating to our arts and travel, food and beverage, to those kinds of people, it's been absolutely devastating. They had a program about Broadway, what still is going on there. But it's hopefully, we'll be able to recenter some. So thank you for sharing that.
It's just going to be a reorganization. It's coming back. Of course, it's going to come back. This is our oxygen. But people have, again, I'm just going to say it again, people have to think differently and how to move forward, be incredibly creative. And again, you have to ask yourself, what are the motives also? I think that it's going to be really interesting that the quality of the gatherings are going to be so much more heightened when we're able to be back together. I mean, even my phone calls with my friends now are really special. There's no small talk. No more small talk. And you know what? It's not that life is too short. It's that you never know. I have another saying that I've been using a lot, and that this too shall pass. And it's not the negative, this too shall pass. You have to remember that when you're in a special moment, special time, when you're very actively in the present, realize that this too shall pass, and you really just absorb every moment of it. When you're watching the symphony concert with Sabrina and the South Florida Symphony, remember that this is a very special moment. It'll never be like this again, hopefully in our lifetime, that was created to try to bring vibrancy to audiences and to thank them also for their continued support for this wonderful organization, and Sabrina and Jacqueline and all of the board and the donors and the supporters and the patrons and blah, blah, blah. But it's, and the musicians. I mean, you have to realize that there are so few opportunities now for musicians to play together, that this concert is a miracle. And that's what it is. And in expressing ourselves through this kind of music is also incredibly special, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah, there's nothing like a live performance, and they're doing the recorded performance, and they have done a phenomenal job. We were very honored to come to the rehearsals and do some video and photography, and it was interesting to see Sabrina way over here, and the oboe player way over here, and the trumpets, back in the back, and the timpani player, way up against the wall. I've never seen, obviously, a symphony like that, but they had to do it and they made it work. But there's nothing like seeing the live concert. And, as you very well know, when you play the last note, the concert's over, and that moment will never be, that moment is gone. That moment is gone. It's not anything like a movie that will live forever online or whatever. When those live performances, when you walk out the door, you've got to plan for the next one.
That's right.
Yeah. So this has been great. Tell me about, I don't want to cut you off, but tell me, I want to know some about your musical outreach. You've done so much with schools, hospitals, libraries, museums, rehabilitation centers. I would love to round out to know some about that, Zuill, if you don't mind to share that with us.
I when I was 19 and 20 and 21, I was lucky enough to be invited to play concerts in different cities, and where I grew up in Washington, D.C., and there was so much given to us in our schools and in our churches, and there was so much music. And I would be sitting in these cities for 3 days waiting for my recital or my concerto or whatnot, and I'd be sitting in my hotel room, and it made me ill that I couldn't go out into the community like they did for me in Washington, D.C. and come to my schools, as opposed to, why was I there? I wasn't there to watch TV in my hotel room. So I just began, I programmed myself at age 19, 18, when there was a concert to celebrate. The concert, to me, was the celebration of the work leading up to the concert. So I would just go out in the community and play for everyone. I would do pop-ups. I would go to nursing homes. I'd go to hospices. I would go to hospitals, the NICU units for infants in intensive care. And it just became something I did. And I started realizing many things. First of all, it made me feel like I was doing something really worthwhile, seeing how music affects people and really does soothe and heal. It was not only just for the patients at the hospital, it was for the doctors. It was a distraction. Music it's another world when you take those people there. But in a professional setting, people don't know to go unless they know to the concerts. And people want to also go hear people that they know play and tell the stories, the news stories. So by the time I would get to the concert a few days later, they would have 200 more people in the audience because they got to know me personally from the community. So, okay, I'm an artistic director at many music festivals, and that has become the core mission of ours. We have residencies, so I now don't invite musicians in for just a concert. I buy their time, and their time is, whatever their fee is, they're mine for 5 days. And every single day, we're out in the community doing something extraordinary. And I love seeing how it also changes the musicians and how they can see that their role as kind of an ambassador for the arts is. And how people who've never seen a cello or a flute or a viola or a bass and see the sounds that can be made, and relate those sounds to the video games they play or the movies they watch or whatever.
Or the Bugs Bunny song, or the Bugs Bunny cartoon they watched forever. Yes.
That's right. So that's how it all started. So now that's just part of my life. It has been for 40 years. And it is something that not only I do, but I really try to promote and showcase for all musicians to do. They really need to do it. It's not just about playing in the concert hall. It's bringing the beauty of music to the world any way they can.
Music is part of the healing process. It is part of, as you said, it's what creates our culture. It perpetuates our culture, and it makes us better people. We leave inspired. There's a reason it's part of church music. It's part of, woven into all of our culture. The numerous studies have shown that schools, K through 12, that integrate music into the curriculum, the children come out more successful in all of their other studies. There's less problems with the children. The evidence is very clear that music must be part of K through 12 education and must be funded. And as a former teacher, I used to be a math teacher, but I firmly believe in all of that being part of the integrated part of the curriculum. I had a class in college called Music and Art Appreciation, and I learned even so much just in that one class, even though I've have a lot of music background. So, but that's amazing. And being able to connect on a personal level, like you said, with the artist, it makes the concert so much more fun because you feel like, I kind of know the person up there. They're really interesting and they're fun. It's not just the music, but, getting to hear the history of the piece of the cello concerto we're going to hear coming up really fills in all those gaps. You just really feel so much more connected to the piece. So we're excited for this piece to come January 16th, 2021.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So again, Zuill will be with the South Florida Symphony Orchestra Saturday, January 16th, 2021 at 8 p.m. Part of their Masterworks 3 virtual concert. And again, they did a phenomenal job of putting this together, the social distancing. We talked with them multiple times, and they thought of every detail possible to make this possible and to make this really amazing concert. I'm going to tell about the website. Zuill, I usually ask this last question. Is there anything you wanted to cover that I didn't ask before I go through all the website and ticket sales again?
I just want to praise the South Florida Symphony and Sabrina and Jacqueline one more time for taking a chance, making this happen during a very, very unusual time where most people are numb, to program the way they did with such inspiring symphonic music as well as challenging Russian music that will, again, music has that X factor that really ignites things that no other art form that I've ever experienced does. And right now we're working on soon to try to get a more residency activity with the symphony and the artists to go there longer. And we're exchanging ideas for future projects to ensure what we talked about, that not only the guest artists but the symphony musicians are out in the community. And I just rally and hope that everybody watching this video can make a donation to their cause and know that it's really a worthwhile sound investment.
Yes, and I want to echo that. I've said if there's ever a time to support the arts, this is the time to do it. They need the support. They need the support emotionally, and they need the support financially. And I've said this on other videos. I'll say it again. This is a time to get out your checkbooks and your credit cards and help support and keep these organizations that are so needed. It's not entertainment. It is about making our culture better, keeping our culture alive, and making us better as a society and as a people. And this is what the arts are all about. So give to the symphony, and there's a lot of other organizations, because it is what makes us better. It is, and for the next generation too, for our children. And again, January 16th, 2021 at 8 p.m., Masterworks 3. Tickets are at www.southfloridasymphony.org. Click on the 2021 concerts and tickets. Arthur has it pulled up there. Zuill, they have this great video of you. It's really nice. You can use promo code OUTCLIQ3, OUTCLIQUE, and the number 3 to get $20 off your ticket. So again, this is a great evening to participate in the symphony. Zuill, thank you so much. It has really been a joy and a pleasure talking to you, learning more about the cello concerto that's coming up, and about your life. Is there anything else that you want to wrap up with?
Thanks for a great morning. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you. Thank you. We look forward to the concert. We're most grateful to Sabrina and Miss Jacqueline, as I call her, for their leadership in putting this together. Jacqueline and I had numerous conversations about the transformation and just really how much work it was, because not only did they do the concert and the social distancing, they also had the video production. So they have put so much time and effort into this. It's time that we step up and support them. But it's a phenomenal concert, and I know how much how great it is. So Zuill, thank you so much. Our website is OUTCLIQ, OUTCLIQUE.com. Oh, Zuill, I'm sorry, I forgot. We were going to put up your social media and your website too. My bad. There is yours with your Facebook, Instagram, and as I say, carrier pigeon, 2 cans in a string, and all of the good stuff to connect with you. So we'll leave that up there, ZuillBailey.com. And then if you want to stay connected with us, you can text, Arthur will put that up, OCQ to 22828 to stay updated on us. Everyone stay safe and look forward to the phenomenal concert January 16th, 2021 by our very own South Florida Symphony Orchestra. Have a good evening.